Let's talk about that advisory panel. Obviously, we had some big meetings last week. We're waiting, with bated breath to see what they're exactly going to come out with this week. But it seemed to me that this advisory panel almost essentially told Johnson and Johnson it should be a two-shot vaccine, right?
Yeah, so let's start there with the J&J vaccine. Initially when we were looking at vaccines, the advice was we really need a bar of 50% protection, and that'll get you there. And J&J felt confident enough that one shot would get them there. One shot getting up into the 70s, actually, so even higher. But now the question is, can we do better? Because the mRNA vaccines have really set a new bar. Can we get the J&J into the 90s? And the data that they presented this week said a second shot of J&J gets us up into the 90s, gets us up at that mRNA level. Now, wide confidence intervals, we'll have to see how this plays out, but we're really asking for more and more from those vaccines. So one shot of J&J is still considered fully vaccinated, but boy, if you wait 2 to 6 months and get that second shot, it looks like efficacy data is up there in the 90s. Now, great point here, because the efficacy is great. J&J does not produce a tremendous number of antibodies. It looks like its superpower is the T cell. And some of the stuff we're seeing in the last week here, maybe 10 times, maybe a log higher level of T cell activation with J&J. And those antibodies we see may be more durable with J&J. So the jury's still out, in all honesty, is what's the best vaccine. But a second dose of J&J is straightforward if you want to get even more protection from that J&J vaccine strategy.
And just for everybody at home, myself included, the nuance there between what my antibodies are and then the cells and their response, which one is more important to watch in all of this?
So in all honesty, we don't know at this point. We do know that people with high antibody levels get infected. We do know that people with high antibody levels can end up in the hospital and die. The immune system is, we use the military analogy. The antibodies are maybe the ground troops, but we think of the T cells as the air support. So yeah, the ground troops, if you've got ground troops, but some side has much better air support, maybe this is appropriate with Colin Powell, you bring in those bombers and those jets and okay, game over for the virus. So we won't need those ground troops. We need those antibodies. Those are our front line of defense. But then we need those T cells, those bombers. And that's why I think we're seeing such great efficacy numbers so far with J&J, despite not seeing so many ground troops.
I also want to talk about the age with J&J. This isn't, or it doesn't seem to me that they're going to come out and say, hey, 65 or, a forward-facing job. It's looking like it's going to be 18 and older.
Yeah, J&J is really an extension of the current EUA. It's saying, if you got one dose under the EUA and you want to go ahead and get a second dose, go right ahead. Really, the data we have going from a one dose to a second dose is incredibly robust, and we have efficacy data. When you're looking at the Moderna and Pfizer boosters, we're really just talking about antibody levels. We're talking about a short duration of protection against infection. So far, we don't know what that will be. So yeah, one, we have really compelling efficacy. Go ahead, get that second J&J shot to get extra protection. mRNA, the Moderna Pfizer, we're still waiting for how much extra bang do we get other than antibody elevation.